I'm Dr. Rob Frank. I'm a counselor here at COD. Today we're going to talk about proactive reading and reactive reading and ways that you can use your textbook. You can use any kind of book for that matter, even novels, things like that, to help you get more out of your reading and thus improve your skills in the classroom and otherwise. And so I'm not very high tech, so I decided I only have about 4 little slides that I gave you all your handouts here, so you can check those out. But we're going to be talking about them, and then I'm going to give you kind of a rundown of the process of how to use this to be a more successful student in the classroom and out of the classroom. It's funny that I'm doing this week. Last week I had a call from a student who graduated COD in 05, and he works for IBM, and he said, I'm still using that proactive thing. He couldn't remember the whole thing, but the proactive thing I still use in my work every day. So that's a good thing. So you know it works. It really comes out, it's not just something I pulled out of my ear. It's something that's based in the theories of Carl Jung, was a Swiss psychologist in the 30s. And that's kind of where it got started, of where you can use proactive ways of learning and reading. So, and I say both of those things because we often forget how we do those things in school. Unfortunately, I'll just write this here for you. Hopefully you can read that. Unfortunately, in your K through 12 learning, and some in college too, we've been taught to be reactive learners, reactive, where we do exactly what my little slide here says. You react to it like, oh, this is great, or get the right answer. Not necessarily the best answer, mind you, get the right answer. And that's reacting. We are reacting to what the author wants us to know in the book, or the professor or teacher wants you to know about what she or he's thinking about. So we've been taught to be reactive. We react. Thus that root word there, to help you remember that. But I never quite got it as a student of, why do I have to read this 30-page chapter? Turn to chapter 3 for Thursday and read it. And guess what I would do? I would go home and I would turn to chapter 3 and I would read it. Done. I did what I was supposed to do today. Great. But did I really learn anything? Did I really know anything about chapter 3, whatever course it was in? And I was introduced to this later on at a workshop I went to about we've got to be better stewards of our own time and our own learning, especially in higher education and as an undergrad or graduate student if you choose to go on from here, where it can be very helpful for you. So for the last 15 years, I've used this from you lowly freshmen out there to doctoral students. And well, we turn up the heat a little bit in the graduate schools, but it's very interesting that everybody has about the same reaction, from first-year students to the doctoral students, of how they can use this. So I want to spend a little time today introducing these concepts to you. I did put on here on your handout my email, although the printer didn't do that very well. Let me rewrite that for you. It's very simple. Just my last name is Frank r@cod.edu. Oops. There you go. So if you have questions, Frank r@cod.edu. If you're stuck on it, you try it and you just don't get it, I'd glad to show you how it works. If you ever had me in class, you would be using this. Every one of my classes does a proactive reading report. Now notice I didn't say a book report. I hate book reports. I hated doing them. I hate grading them. I probably read that book. I read a lot of books. But the proactive reading report finds out what you want to know about the book, not what I want to know. So we're going to talk about all those little concepts here. This will probably be the shortest success workshop you've ever been at. But I'll guarantee you, I don't know how I can guarantee it, but if you use what we're going to talk about today, you will be a better student. You will improve your grades. You will do better on quizzes, simply because you're getting what you want out of it. Isn't it true, though, that in most of our classes, the things that we like, we probably do better at? I was not a math guy at all. I can barely spell algebra, So, but I loved history. I love studying history. I love things like that. So I did better in the social sciences, things like that, than I did in math or natural sciences. So that goes to say the things that we care about the most, we're going to probably remember and really tune in a lot better with. And that's what proactive is about. So let's put that up there too. Proactive. So if you look at that, my little slide here, the man is reaching out for something, kind of grabbing the carrot. He's being inquisitive. He's wanting to know something that he necessarily doesn't know about. And that's a really an interesting way to think about it. If you look on that second page, when we describe reactive reading, it's really a one-way communication. Read it, take it in, and hopefully you know it. Whereas proactive, we want you to get what you want to know, what you want to reflect on. This guy's looking into a mirror. He's asking a lot of questions. He's making it work for him. Again, it's the things we want to know we're going to remember better. I'm not a big advocate of assigning the text and expecting miracles. It doesn't really work for me as a teacher or as a counselor or whatever that is. But if I assign something, I want you to get something out of the reading. And notice I said I want you to get something out of the reading, not me, because I've probably read it, like I said. But this is a simple way to make that happen, and I know it works. I know students do better on quizzes and exams when they follow that approach. So if you look on that last sheet, I've given you two things, one for non-textbooks and one for textbooks. And it pretty much works in any discipline. And I'll show you why. In the textbook, let's go through how you would do this. Now, most textbooks today, finally they've listened to faculty after all these years, and they've designed textbooks that's user-friendly. So what's usually in that first, if I say to you, turn to chapter 3 and study that for Friday, what I'd like you to do is go to chapter 3, and the first, usually there's a sidebar or something like that, right? So the sidebar tells us what's in that chapter. In this chapter, you will discover blah, 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 blah. Usually that's how textbooks are designed today. What do you know it's in the very end of that chapter generally? Right? It's the summary. It's a summary of what they talked about in that chapter. It may be some words that are in there in those endnotes. The key phrases, the key words, a glossary, something like that you would be able to look there. A lot of books now have internet resources or suggested readings or other those endnotes. So that is in there. Right there is where you start. We know that's what's in that chapter. So again, A, look to the front of the assignment and read what the publisher notes in a box or a margin of what you're going to explore in that chapter. B, go to the end, look at the summary, the keywords, the internet resources. Hey, you could even take an extra few minutes to look up those internet resources. It's a really good thing. Close the book. Don't read the chapter. What? A professor saying not to read the chapter? Yeah, don't read the chapter at this point. Close the book, put the book aside. Write 3 questions that you've become curious about as a result of that preliminary exam of the chapter. What do you want to know? It's pretty much that simple, okay? So now that we got an idea of what we want to know. Again, we're being proactive. We want to know it. We're probably going to remember it. I'm curious about it. I'm going to reach out for that carrot. What do you want to do with that? Write those questions. Now, we know in most textbooks, at the very end of the textbook, what's out there, right? Correct. Yeah, it's the index. Most books these days have indexes where you think of a phrase or a person or an event or a date, and you can look that up in the very back of a textbook. You can look at the ones you brought with you today. There's an index that will say something that you want to know about. So start answering your questions by using the index or the table of contents or the summary of that chapter you're in. I would say 9.5 times out of 10, you're going to get your answer right there. And what you have done then is come up with 3 or 4 things that you really know about. You really found something that you care about that can be applied to that chapter or that certain part of the book, however that's assigned. If the word afraid is not there, you can always find a synonym, something that's same or similar to that word. You can do that as simply, and as you're sitting there at a laptop, you can look it up on the internet. They're just synonyms.com. And that's the easiest way. Or there's that little thing called the thesaurus that you can find in the library. That's the big room with all the books. If you haven't been there, you guys need to go check it out. We got a great library here. They'll help you. You can look at all of those resources to find your answer. You can also look in that chapter, right? Or it may be referenced in another chapter of your textbook that you could figure that out. Might be follow those leads. You know, it's that thing, you're chasing the carrot. Follow those leads until you have the information relevant to your question, and then write out that question completely. You're going to follow that same procedures for questions 2, 3. Now, from a student point of view, here's something that's interesting. You now have an awesome base of knowledge for that chapter. And you didn't even read it hardly, folks. So you can take with you this base that you can learn more and express more in class. You already have 3 questions. You could be raising your hand for participation points if that's what your professor has you do. You already have it. You already have a base for that quiz. If you know 3 or 4 or 5 things about that chapter, you're probably going to do really well on that quiz. And guess what? It's something you wanted to learn. It's something that you proactively sought to learn. You just didn't puke it back in their shoes like we've learned in K through 12. Read chapter 3 and we'll have a quiz on it. Hopefully you walk away from that chapter. And my friend Mike, my former student, he's using this on his job. You know, he has to read these huge reports, and he uses proactive reading instead of spending hours reading it. He's using this to get what he needs because he's in a certain area of whatever IBM is doing there that day. I really don't know what he does, quite honestly, but it works. Think about how you can transfer all of that in your little notebook or laptop or whatever you use to improve your skills for quizzes and tests. Maybe you make a little 3x5 card, the good old-fashioned 3x5 cards, but you know what? They work for study. I would take them with me and pull them out of my backpack and, you know, have my breakfast or lunch or something and be reading those cards. You at chapter 3, here's my 3 questions. You got it. It helps us to keep our study in force. I'm going to give you a bonus today, too. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about backtracking notes, which is very similar to proactive reading. So that's the textbook side of the house. The non-textbook, novels, manuals, some of those technical manuals or even math books, math textbooks, might fall under that non-text thing. So it's going to be the same thing, a little different twist to it. A lot of them will have a dust jacket. You open it up and it tells you what this book is about, and the back dust jacket has what the author is about and where he went to college and where is he doing now and how many prizes, if he won awards, things like that. So that's where you're going to look. See what they're saying about that. Again, look at that introduction, the foreword, the preface. We've seen them in all the books. A lot of times we don't read those. I want to get right to the meat of the story. So look at that intro, foreword, and preface. Very different perspective of what the book's about. And that kind of orients us to what that book or novel, whatever that is about. Table of contents, how did they order the information? Close the book. Close the book. Put aside, write your 3 questions. Same thing. Go and find your answers, much like you did in the textbook side of the house. Get your answers. You may, I have a rule when I read for pleasure. If I get to the page 50 and I'm not liking it or I don't feel good about it, I'm done. Because it's for like a novel, something like that. It just isn't doing it for me. So I go on to the next one. So, but if I did this proactive thing, I'd probably not have to go 50 pages. But so there's a couple ways you can use this. You can use that one, of course, in a literature class, something like that. You've all heard of Cliff Notes or Spark Notes, things like that. Think of this as your own personal Spark Notes. All right, you've done this investigation for yourself. And thus that proactive way of learning changes everything for you. It shakes up the whole part of learning on the collegiate level. So I want to encourage you to do those things. The textbook part of it improves our, like I said, our grades and things of that nature. And I just had some notes here that I put here. Self-directed learning implies that learners take the initiative. So you're putting the key in the car and driving it, and making use of other resources than just what you're reading, rather than simply react to transmissions from those resources. They know what they want to get. They are proactive rather than reactive. Most of us have developed the habit of using resources, especially books, reactively. We talked about this. We read the page, we go from there. The author tells us the answers to the questions he or she thinks we ought to be asking. So as a student, proactively, you should be asking the questions. You're in the driver's seat. Some books have to be read this way. Most works of fiction, creative writing, philosophical essays develop plots or themes with sequential elements. We know that. However, most books that we turn to for information, textbooks, reference manuals, are organized according to content. So that different there. Instead of the sequential elements, it's really content. You'll notice, maybe you have, when you read a textbook, we're unfolding your learning from some basic things about, my favorite again, history. And we learn more about that. Or it could be philosophy. We got to learn about the Greeks before we can move on with anything going on in today's philosophies. If we have that basis, that's where we're going first. So that bigger picture of education is in every textbook, all right? Readers who know the questions to which they want answers can turn to the content category containing the answers to their questions. The book then takes on a different character. Rather than being a one-way transmission, it's a resource for self-directed inquiry, proactive. So your index is probably your best friend. I'm talking like it's people, but the index can help you find your answers, which is something that you really, really want to find out anyway. So that's a good thing. So with that, if you have questions on this, there you can contact me. I'll get back to you. It might take me a day to get back to you, please. But I want to challenge you to try it for the next couple weeks. Try it. How about this? Try it between now and your next quiz. Look at your syllabus, ask your professor, when's our next quiz? And, take the pulse. Is this going to work for me? Try it. I bet you do well. And I really encourage you to email me and tell me that. Oh, Dr. Frank, you're crazy. That didn't work at all. I got thick skin. I'm ready to hear that. But if you try it, I bet you'll see some differences, because it's that proactive piece. You're getting what you want, and the quizzes unfold a lot easier. Again, you already have a base. And if nothing else, you have 3 questions per chapter for participation points. Well, I thought in chapter 3 that we were going to talk, you're going to sound really smart if nothing else, which is a good thing as well. But you are going to be smarter because it's your way of getting things done. Please let me know about questions. But here's your bonus today. I want to challenge you to also think, and I know this little thing works too. I've been doing this for years for myself. And I, again, transition this off to college students very simply called backtracking. And this is very much what a proactive learner does. So you're going to backtrack your notes. See, we've learned to take notes in college to write down everything the professor says. As you know, we know everything. Not really. But what happens is we try to write down everything. Again, very reactive, right? Just how we define reactive. Yeah, I better listen up. But here's that proactive stance. You're writing down notes. Some of those key points. Be thinking of things you want to know about. Fashion your notes in that sense. And then I want to challenge you. "5 minutes a day per class." Most of us full-time students, we have 4 or 5 classes. We're talking a whopping 25 minutes out of 24 hours. Not a big commitment, folks. I want you to take 5 minutes per class and look at your notes that day. We all have 24 hours. Trust me, it works. Put it in your calendar. Put it in your phone. Whatever you use, put that backtracking in there. Half hour, 25 minutes, whatever your phone or planner works. Put that time in there. If you look at your notes every day, here's what happens, folks. All right. Oops. I think this one's dying. Thank you, sir. So this is the beginning of class. Some of you just maybe started 12-week classes or the 8-week classes coming up. And this is your first quiz or exam, Q or E. Right? So we have class going up to that. Usually that 4, 5, 6 weeks we have that first quiz or exam, larger exam, maybe quizzes earlier. So this is the very high-tech part. I need your help on this now. If you guys can help me do this. Now, this is the high-tech part. Please tell me, please stop my hand where most students begin to study for that first quiz or exam. Anybody help me out? Yeah? Stop right here. Okay. You guys are the smart ones, obviously, because that's really true. Oh my God, I got a quiz on Friday, and it's Thursday afternoon. Yeah, maybe it is a little more like this, huh? It's the day before, or the night before, or, oh my God, it's 6 a.m., I got a quiz this morning, and I haven't done it. That's usually when this happens, right? However, if you use backtracking, 5 minutes a day, you're going to start at the beginning, look at your notes to the point of the semester where you're at. Maybe you add a little note. Maybe you ask a proactive question about the note. 5 minutes a day. You're going to make an imprint of each day. What's going to happen when you get to, let's say, week 5? What's going to happen to all these guys that we did in the first couple weeks? Pretty darn fuzzy. I mean, we're not going to remember those things. If you do that backtracking, you're at least going to have a reference point from clear back there. If you tie that together with proactive reading, you're going to do better. And that's these success workshops is what this is about, giving you tools to get things done. You know, I can give you a bag of tools when you come into class, but you won't know how to use the hammer if you've never seen a hammer before. Some people take that hammer out and they grab the claw, and it's that big handle, and they pound the nail in with the handle. Guess what? It works. Eventually, that nail will go in. It'll take you about 6 weeks. Or you can turn the handle, grab the handle, head up here, pound, 2-3 times, maybe less, maybe more, and it'll work much more efficient. That's what we're talking about with these tools. Use your tools efficiently. I can give you the bag of tools. When you leave my course, when you leave college, you're going to have a huge bag of tools. You got to know how to use them effectively and very efficiently. Yep, the old hammer will work with the handle, but you don't want to go through your life that way. Easier to use it correctly of what we learned here. So that's really what we've talked about today, the proactive piece and your backtracking. Watch it work, folks. If you have any questions, once again, give me an email here. I'd be glad to get back to you. If you want, we can always make an appointment. I'd love to have you come in and I'd go over it with you because I know it works. Thanks very much for coming today. I really appreciate it. Is there any questions?
Could you just summarize again the backtracking?
Yeah.
So it's basically reviewing your notes.
Yep.
And being proactive.
Yep. So backtracking, once again, good question. Thank you for asking. You're probably a very good student. Looking at your notes, let's say it is, we'll just pick on history again. You have history 1130, U.S. history until 1865. Hopefully, every day you're writing some notes that you're getting from lecture, maybe out of your proactive search. You can put those in your notes. So every day for about 5 minutes per class, history 1130, you're going to go back to day 1 and review them. You don't have to memorize them. You want to make this imprint in your head, in your brain. It's kind of like a Xerox machine. The more copies you make, the darker, and maybe that's what happened to my handouts today. It's going to imprint more in your brain. It's going to be that visual thing that you see daily. You know, you don't have to do it daily. 4 days a week. I mean, that'll do it. It's a majority of your week. You're going to see it. You know, maybe I'd space it out. Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, however that works. Of course, if you have an exam or quiz, when you know that, speed that up a little bit. You're going to take these then and continue to build this piece of memory, quite honestly, towards your quiz or exam. Using that, coupling it with your proactive reading from your examination, those 3-4 questions per chapter, put them in your notes. Make that a part of backtracking. If you use those 2 tools, you're going to do better on quizzes. Does that help you out there? Great. All right. Anything else? Well, thank you very much again for coming today, and hopefully you'll come to other workshops as they're on posters all around the college, and read the Courier, things like that, and we'll hopefully see you next time. Thank you.